Hi, what I have here on the workbench today is a ZA-048 LPDA antenna. It can operate over a wide frequency range from roughly 400 MHz up to 8 GHz. SEESII Power Tool sent in this for me to take a look. As usual, I will leave a product link in the video description below for those who are interested. LPDA, or Log Periodic Dipole Array, is a type of high-gain wideband directional antenna. It looks very similar to a YAGI antenna, but it's actually quite different. A YAGI antenna has a single driven element, meaning that the signal is fed into a single dipole. Also, a YAGI antenna typically has a single reflector behind the driven dipole and many directors in front of it. And the main characteristics of a YAGI antenna are narrow bandwidth and high gain. The radiation pattern is also very sharp. An LPDA, on the other hand, while looks very similar to a YAGI, is actually quite different. If you look at the PCB here, you can see that all these elements are connected. The pattern underneath is actually symmetric. Basically, each pair of the elements on the top side and the bottom side forms a dipole. All these dipoles are connected together and are the active elements. Now I realize it might be difficult for you to see the patterns here because the PCB is black and the silkscreen is also black. So let me see if I can shine a light from underneath so that you can see the patterns on the other side better. All right, now I have a light behind the PCB here. You can see here, for example, this is our top element. That's this section. And at the bottom, you can see we also have a symmetric section here. Now, you can't really see that well still. Let me actually flip it over. So you can see this corresponds to this feature up on the front. And of course, on the front, everything is connected together. And on the back, everything is connected together. So these are the two sides of the dipoles. So from the construction we see here, you can intuitively understand why LPDAs have much wider bandwidth. Because each of these dipoles has its own resonant frequency, and by combining them together, you can essentially achieve the higher bandwidth. The dipoles, for example, towards the left are responsible for low frequencies, and the dipoles to the right, you can see very tiny ones, these are responsible for high frequencies. So those are the basics of an LPDA. The typical gain of an LPDA is between 6 and 10 dBi. The silkscreen here actually says Zinco, but if you take a look at the menu here, you will see it says SEESII Power Tools. And if you just search the ZT-048, you will find quite a few different sellers, pretty much selling the same thing. At least they are based on the same design. Now, one issue I have here is you can see this SMA connector is right on the antenna itself. It is actually towards the end where the high frequency dipoles are located. And the issue here is I think it will interfere with the antenna, as the cable, if you connect to it, would be very close to the elements. And there's no way around that. So that definitely would have some impact to the radiation pattern. Anyway, I think this antenna will be very useful for a wide range of applications, such as using as a Wi-Fi antenna and for directional finding, given its wide frequency range. The antenna comes with a tripod stand, so you can mount the antenna on top, and also you can hook up a tinySA, which is actually very convenient. I'll show you that a little bit later. Let me set everything up and we'll take some measurements. Actually, before I do that, let's take a look at the specs. You can see here the frequency range is from 400 MHz all the way up to 8 GHz. And for directional finding, it's actually 1 GHz to 8.5 GHz. And the reason for higher lower bound in this application scenario is because, as explained below, due to the reduced directivity under 1 GHz. And here you can see the return loss, which is the S11. It's not that great. And this is actually due to the imperfect impedance match. Ideally, the antenna impedance should be 50 ohms, but in practice it's not always the case, as there will be some reflected power. And also you can see from the SWR numbers listed here. The best SWR you can see from this specifications here is around 2, which is for greater than 1 GHz. Now, that is not that great. Ideally, it should be under 1.5. But given that this is a broadband antenna, this is actually acceptable. Of course, under 1 GHz, you can see the SWR is actually quite poor, especially under 400 MHz. It increases rapidly. Anyway, let's now take a look at the characteristics charted in the specifications. and is a little bit hard to see. And I'll try to pull the PDF and overlay it on the screen here. The first one is the S11. As you can see, over the entire frequency range, it is mostly under -10 dB. Like I mentioned earlier, the performance is actually quite poor towards the lower end of the frequency range. There's a noticeable notch right around 4.4 GHz, and at that frequency, the S11 is actually quite good. That's below -30 dB, but everywhere else, you can see that it is actually less than that. Remember that the frequency range of this antenna is extremely wide, so some variations in the S11 is actually to be expected. And in this chart, you can see the directivity of the antenna. Again, there's a huge variation depending on the operating frequency. At around 1.2 GHz, it has the best directivity at over 40 decibels, but just below 1 GHz, you can see the directivity actually dropped to just around 3 dB. So there is a huge variation as well, especially in the lower frequency range. This last plot I want to show you shows the antenna gain over the frequency range. And you can see that the gain is actually quite uniform between 2 GHz and 7 GHz, but rolls off quickly towards either end of the frequency limit. Alright, I just mounted the antenna onto the tripod here. Now, there is another thing I don't quite like about this arrangement. You can see the holder for the tinySA is actually right on top of the antenna. So after you put the tinySA on, again, I think it will interfere with the radiation pattern here. I guess I didn't have enough coffee this morning. Of course, there are two mounting points. If you use the other one, of course, the nanosA can stay vertical. So that's good. So today I'm actually going to use this SV63018 VNA that I reviewed a while back to measure the antenna. This VNA actually does a decent job, but in my opinion, it doesn't really warrant the price you pay as it's quite expensive. Sure, you've got a big screen here, but spec-wise, it's actually quite similar to a Nano VNA-FV3. Price tag aside, the biggest issue I have with this SV63018 is that it has horrible battery drain when it's powered off. When I measured, it's constantly drawing about 0.5 milliamps. So yeah, it will self-discharge in a couple months. Every time when I try to use it, the battery is actually always flat, and that's why you never saw me using it in any of my videos. And worse yet, normally you would be able to charge the battery via the USB-C port. But once the battery is flat, there's no way for you to charge them via the USB. It's just not powerful enough to charge up the battery. So you ended up having to open up the cover, taking out the batteries, and charge them in the charger separately. Clearly there's some design flaw here, at least in earlier versions. So if you have one of these VNAs, let me know in the comment section below if you have experienced any similar problems. Anyway, this time I actually remembered to charge it up right before, so I can show you in this video. Alright, let me power it on. The user interface is actually quite nice, and by the way, I had already calibrated it before, so I'm not going to do this on camera. Let's just jump right in. So to measure the S11, let me hook it up. So this was what I was talking about. You can see here, there's no way for you to get around having the cable dangling over the surface of the antenna. So this definitely will have some impact on the performance of the antenna here. And if you take a look at the S11 here, it's actually slightly different than what we saw in the specs a little bit earlier. Let me actually try to adjust the vertical scale here so we can see the graph a little bit better. And let's actually turn off the S21 because we're not measuring that. Alright, I just made some adjustments here. The starting frequency now is 400 MHz, and also I changed the vertical to 5 dB per division instead of the 10 dB per division, so you can see the response a little bit better. And if you compare this with what is shown in the spec, you will see that it doesn't quite look the same. Towards the lower end, I suppose, is similar, but we don't have this dip towards around 4 GHz. But anyway, so that's our measured S11. Now let's actually change it to the SWR mode. So let's come back here and we change format, SWR. So this actually shows the SWR of the antenna over the entire frequency range, of course, up to 6.3 gigahertz. That's the highest it can go with this SV63018. As you can see here, the SWR is pretty poor when the frequency is under a couple of gigahertz. Let's actually take a look at the marker here, what that was. So right here, that's around 1.1 gigahertz. You can see that below 1.1 gigahertz, the SWR is all over the place. At some points, it's actually all the way up to 9, which is definitely not ideal. But once you get beyond 1.2 gigahertz, you can see that for the majority of the time, the SWR actually is under 2, which is still not ideal, but is definitely a lot better than what we have here in the lower frequency range. All right, I just hooked up the antenna to a tinySA, and you can see actually the setup works quite well. The tinySA sits right here, and the antenna is essentially fed directly into the connector here. Now, this is what I was mentioning earlier. You can see there's no way for you to be able to put the cable away from the antenna. I would think this definitely has some effect on the antenna itself. But anyway, so let's actually take a look at what we got here. And you can see these are the signals being picked up by the tinySA. Of course, I have all sorts of things going on in the lab. I'm not entirely sure what all these frequency components are, but these are definitely real frequencies. Because if I, for example, disconnect the tinySA, and you can see that all the frequencies disappear. So these are definitely real frequencies being picked up. And what I think I'm going to do is I'm going to power up my 8642B signal generator, and we're going to output a signal through that antenna right here so that you can see, hopefully we can pick it up on this tinySA. So let's do that. All right, I just powered up my HP8642B, which is humming in the background. And by the way, I forgot to mention that I actually changed the stop frequency here to 2 gigahertz, as otherwise it will be scanning too slow. Anyway, so right now we're measuring between 400 megahertz and 2 gigahertz. Of course, right now the output from the 8642B is off. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to output a 1 gigahertz minus 30 dBm signal, and then we'll see what we get on the tinySA here. So let me enable the output. And you can probably already see, now we have a peak here. This was not there before, and that's actually the 1 gigahertz. Let's just kind of double check that. And let's put a cursor on it. And you can see that, yep, it's roughly 1 gigahertz. It's 998, but that's close. So that's our 1 gigahertz signal. And let's actually change the orientation of the antenna, see if it gets stronger as we point it directly at that antenna. Yeah, you can see it's getting stronger because right now the antenna is right here and we are receiving it directly in front of the antenna. So now if I move it away, you can see that the magnitude dropped, and that's because now we're away from the radiation source. So that's how you use this tinySA along with the antenna to detect signals. All right, that's all I wanted to show you in this video. If you liked it, please remember to give it a big thumbs up, and don't forget to subscribe to this channel for more videos like this in the future. If you wanted to further support my work, please consider joining the channel and becoming a member. Your support makes videos like this possible. Thanks for watching, and I will see you next time.